The old memories of Seven Colored were meant to repeat, but Wang Lin shattered that fate. By overturning Su Dao's past, mastering the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, and forcing the Dong Lin Sect's competition into chaos, he finally awakened the 8 doors and discovered the true path to the Immortal Astral Continent. Now, with 8 essence true bodies formed and Old Ghost Zhan closing in, Wang Lin stands before the ancient door that has remained sealed for countless years. Somewhere between the rain and the crackling fire, this storyteller nearly dropped his tea when the latest tale arrived. Our old friend Wang Lin has never been one to choose the quiet road, and this gone and turned an entire memory into a battlefield. So settle in, daoists, and let us see what lies beyond that legendary door. Rain descended without mercy. The downpour thickened by the breath, drumming against stone and swallowing the restless voices across the square. Yet beneath that curtain of water, 9 incense sticks continued to burn. Their flames did not falter. Their smoke did not scatter. No matter how fiercely the heavens poured, those 9 trails of smoke rose steadily into the gray sky. Smoke intertwined with rain, twisting through silver droplets like something half real and half dream. For a brief moment, the solemn mountain sect seemed separated from the mortal world by a veil. An umbrella opened above Wang Lin. The young man who had followed him stood behind him awkwardly, holding it with both hands. Embarrassment covered his face, and in the end he simply turned his eyes elsewhere, pretending not to notice the countless gazes gathering upon them. Nearly 100 cultivators occupied the square. Among them stood a group led by a black-robed young man. Their brows tightened. Several were already preparing to reprimand Wang Lin when the 3rd bell rang. The incense smoke suspended above the square suddenly twisted. 9 streams converged, spiraling into a vast vortex. As it turned, invisible force pushed the rain outward, carving a dry emptiness through the storm. Within the vortex, a blurred human silhouette slowly took shape. One step emerged from the smoke, then another. The figure walked out of the vortex and stopped in midair, standing above the square as though the sky itself were solid beneath his feet.
Welcome back from closed door cultivation. Teacher.
Almost 100 cultivators clasped their hands in unison. The man above them appeared middle-aged, with long black hair falling loosely across his shoulders. His features were ordinary rather than handsome, yet there was something impossible to ignore about him, a strange serenity, an aura detached from mundane dust. His gaze passed over the disciples below. When his eyes reached Wang Lin and the young man stubbornly holding an umbrella behind him, his brows briefly furrowed. Then, almost immediately, that expression softened into a faint smile.
Su Dao, Zhu Lai, the 2 of you follow teacher into the hall. Everyone else may leave.
His voice was soft, but no one dared treat it lightly. He stepped through the air toward the hall. The black-robed young man who had been preparing to rebuke Wang Lin, Zhou Li, nodded solemnly, cast Wang Lin a measured glance, and followed. Wang Lin remained calm. The memories obtained from the 3rd soul had already shown him this teacher clearly. The man had genuinely treated Su Dao well. Had he not spent so much time in closed-door cultivation, much of the unfair treatment Su Dao suffered within the sect might never have happened. The tragedy was not that Su Dao lacked protection. It was that the person willing to protect him was absent too often, while Su Dao himself had been too timid to speak. In a cultivation sect, silence could become its own kind of weakness. Zhou Li was Su Dao's senior brother and possessed considerable talent. Outwardly, he was mild and composed. Beneath that courteous surface, however, he looked down on Su Dao. When others bullied his junior brother, Zhou Li had simply watched and ignored it. Under the jealous eyes of the disciples outside, Wang Lin crossed the rain-soaked square and entered the hall. Inside, the middle-aged teacher was already seated. Zhou Li stood respectfully to one side, his posture impeccable.
Teacher will not remain outside closed-door cultivation for long. Once I settle several matters, I will return to seclusion.
His gaze moved between Zhou Li and Wang Lin. For a moment, he said nothing. Wang Lin knew what was coming. He had already lived this moment once through the third soul's memories. After a few words, their teacher would transmit an art to both disciples. It was the introductory method to one of the Dong Lin Sect's 3 supreme inheritances, the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. Only those capable of mastering this introductory circulation could hope to touch the true essence of that Dao. The trial measured more than raw cultivation. It judged affinity. Once the introductory art circulated successfully, clouds would manifest outside the body. Thin clouds meant poor compatibility. Dense clouds were better. If a shadow formed within those clouds, the cultivator's suitability rose even higher. Speed mattered as well, because the circulation time revealed how naturally the art answered the cultivator. Across the countless years of the Dong Lin Sect, the fastest qualified disciples had required 7 breaths. The slowest had needed several hours. In the original memory, Su Dao had been frightened by Zhou Li's cold stare. His mind wavered. His circulation slowed. 20 breaths passed before he completed a single cycle. Zhou Li had needed only 11. Worse, Su Dao's shaken concentration had produced only weak clouds. Zhou Li's clouds had manifested a shadow that swallowed Su Dao's manifestation entirely. Their teacher had sighed, abandoned the idea of teaching Su Dao the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, and instead passed him the lower-ranked 7-colored celestial art. Now the same crossroads had appeared before Wang Lin. He stood silently, thinking, should he obey the memory, reproduce Su Dao's humiliation, and allow history to flow exactly as the 7-colored celestial sovereign remembered it, or should he resist the memory and overturn the result? Following the memory had an obvious advantage. The closer Wang Lin moved along the third soul's original life, the deeper their fusion might become. Perhaps, eventually, that fusion would reveal the location of the true door among the 8, but there was no certainty. This path offered possibility, not proof. And Wang Lin had another reason to reject complete integration. Xianxia. If Wang Lin completely fused with the third soul, Xianxia would never awaken again. The instant that integration became absolute, Xianxia would disappear, and Wang Lin himself would become the new 7-colored. That price crossed a line Wang Lin was unwilling to accept. More importantly, bending himself into Su Dao's cowardice was contrary to everything Wang Lin had become through countless life-and-death struggles. He could borrow another man's memories, but he would not surrender his own will.
This art is one of the 3 most powerful arts of the Dong Lin Sect. It is called the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. Your cultivation is not yet sufficient to study the true inheritance, so first you must cultivate its introductory method. However, this art carries a restriction. In each generation, only one person from a lineage may inherit it. I chose the 2 of you today to determine who is most suitable.
He explained the test, the density of the manifested clouds, the appearance of any shadow within them, and the number of breaths required to complete the circulation. Zhou Li lowered his head, but even that disciplined posture could not hide the desire burning in his eyes.
The heavenly Dao was damaged, and repairing it will require a very long time.
He slowly transmitted the introductory formula, then he raised his right hand. 2 wisps of cloud flew from his palm and entered Wang Lin and Zhou Li.
The clouds have entered your bodies. Sit immediately and circulate them as quickly as possible. Whoever succeeds first will seize the advantage. During the process, concentrate completely. Do not allow outside thoughts to disturb your minds.
Zhou Li dropped into a seated position without hesitation. Wang Lin sat as well. Just before Wang Lin began circulating the cloud energy, Zhou Li raised his head. That familiar stare came again, cold, grim, threatening. Their teacher saw it. His brows drew together, yet he remained silent. Instead, his attention shifted toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin sighed inwardly. So this was it. This single gaze had once broken Su Dao's concentration and altered the course of his cultivation. But the man sitting there today was not the timid Su Dao. He was Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes turned cold. He looked back at Zhou Li as casually as one might glance at dust upon the road. In that instant, Zhou Li trembled. What struck him was not mere hostility. From Wang Lin's gaze came killing intent. Cold, direct, and so deeply ingrained that Zhou Li's mind shook before he could control it. Zhou Li had intended to repeat the old psychological advantage. Instead, the pressure reversed in a heartbeat. Against Su Dao, intimidation had been enough. Against Wang Lin, that same tactic was like testing a blade with one's bare hand. Wang Lin had already closed his eyes. Cloud energy surged through his meridians at terrifying speed. Zhou Li hurriedly shut his own eyes and began circulating as well. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3. Time seemed to tighten around the hall. At the 8th breath, clouds erupted from Wang Lin's body. Their teacher's eyes flashed. He abruptly rose from his chair. Clouds continued pouring outward. They thickened instead of dispersing, spreading across the hall until white mist swallowed most of the chamber. The cloud sea churned violently, and from somewhere inside came faint rumbling roars. 8 breaths, only 1 breath slower than the fastest qualification recorded across countless years of the Dong Lin Sect. The difference between the original Su Dao's 20 breaths and Wang Lin's 8 was not a minor improvement. It was a complete reversal of destiny. The 20th breath arrived. Only then did Zhou Li barely complete his first circulation. A small amount of cloud emerged around him. Compared with Wang Lin's vast manifestation, it was pitifully insignificant. Before Zhou Li could even recover, Wang Lin's cloud sea roared. The clouds twisted together and formed an enormous dragon head. Its features were fierce. Its cloud-forged eyes carried overwhelming ferocity. With a thunderous surge, the dragon lunged toward Zhou Li. The weak clouds around Zhou Li were torn away and devoured in moments. He coughed up blood, his complexion paling as his strength rapidly faded. And then the memory broke. The instant history diverged from what the third soul remembered. The entire great hall began to distort. Walls twisted. Space rippled. Their teacher's body blurred, as though his existence were being pulled between 2 incompatible realities. Yet the distortion did not stop at the hall. The square outside warped. The mountain surrounding the square bent like an image reflected on disturbed water. Beyond it, the mountain range twisted. Beyond that, the Dong Lin Sect itself began to distort. It was as though the entire world constructed from memory could no longer decide what was true. This was the consequence of contradiction. Wang Lin had not merely altered an event. He had forced the third soul's remembered reality to contain 2 incompatible histories. The greater that contradiction became, the more violently the illusionary world lost stability.
Good exclamation, Su Dao. You are the second person, beneath teacher's lineage, to possess the qualifications to cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art.
The middle-aged man laughed even while his figure continued to distort. Then his gaze shifted toward the terrified Zhou Li.
Zhou Li, although you do not possess the qualifications to cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, teacher will instead teach you the 7-colored celestial art.
Those words were the final reversal. A tearing agony exploded through Wang Lin's mind. It felt as if the world, the memory, and even his consciousness were about to split apart. Then he sensed them. The aura of the 8 doors. The sensation appeared suddenly and vanished almost as quickly. As the contradiction settled into this newly altered history, the distortion surrounding everything gradually faded. The hall became solid again. The mountains stopped twisting. The world returned to normal. But inside Wang Lin's heart, a monstrous wave had already risen.
I understand. If I change the seven-colored celestial sovereign's memories and create contradiction, those moments of confusion, allow me to sense the 8 doors. The greater the contradiction, the deeper the confusion, and the clearer my perception becomes. I can use this to locate the real door. This is another method available to me. Change the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories.
This realization transformed Wang Lin's entire situation. Before, he had considered deeper fusion with the third soul as the possible road toward the true door. Now he possessed a second path, one that did not require surrendering himself to the 7-colored celestial sovereign's identity. Instead of obeying the memories, he could weaponize their contradictions. And if this principle held true, then every important turning point in Su Dao's life could become more than a memory. It could become a chance to shake this world, expose the 8 doors, and narrow the distance to the real one.
Su Dao, devote yourself to cultivating this spell. In 5 months, the competition among your generation within the Dong Lin Sect will begin. Those who enter the top 10 will be allowed into the Dong Lin pool. If you can obtain that opportunity, your future achievements will be immeasurable.
Everything had changed. The art Su Dao inherited had changed. Zhou Li's fate had changed. The teacher's judgment had changed. Even the future competition now stood before Wang Lin as an unknown path rather than a remembered certainty. For the first time, Wang Lin was no longer merely walking through another man's past. He had begun rewriting it. And every alteration might bring him one step closer to escaping the labyrinth of the 8 doors. Wang Lin suddenly raised his head. The third soul remembered the competition 5 months later with extraordinary clarity. That single contest would become a dividing line in the lives of 2 disciples. One rising toward glory, the other beginning a descent that would eventually shake the heavens. Zhou Li had obtained the right to cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. With that profound inheritance added to cultivation already outstanding among his generation, his strength advanced rapidly. When the competition arrived, he forced his way into the top 10, claiming 9th place and earning the reward of cultivating within the Dong Lin pool. Su Dao walked an entirely different road. After losing his qualification to cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, the confidence within him seemed to collapse. He became increasingly timid, withdrawn, and dark, as though resentment had quietly buried itself beneath his silence. Then came the competition, and Su Dao failed. For Su Dao, this was far more than a lost contest. It became one of the great turning points of his life. Losing the art, then losing on the stage where he might have redeemed himself, deepened the wound until failure began reshaping his very personality. During the years that followed, Su Dao sank into a long decline. He spoke little, avoided others, and spent most of his time alone in closed-door cultivation. Only after an unexpected meeting with his ancestor did the darkness begin to lift. With the ancestor personally teaching him, Su Dao slowly raised his head once more. But fortune did not remain with him. Another unexpected encounter ended with Su Dao being expelled from the Dong Lin Sect. From that moment onward, across countless years, the Su Dao who had once belonged to the Dong Lin Sect ceased to exist. In his place rose the 7-colored celestial sovereign, a man who struggled, resisted, hardened himself, and gradually became cruel and ruthless until, at last, he established the 7 Dao sect. The tragedy was not that Su Dao suddenly became merciless. It was that one defeat, followed by years of humiliation, isolation, opportunity, and calamity, slowly forged him into someone his younger self could never have imagined. The memory Wang Lin witnessed revealed how terrifyingly small causes could grow into consequences spanning ages. Zhou Li's fate was no kinder. On the day the seven-colored celestial sovereign finally completed his Dao, he captured Zhou Li, the rival whose shadow had followed him since youth, and killed him cruelly. These scenes passed through Wang Lin's mind one after another, vivid as ancient paintings unfolding before his eyes. He sat upon the mountain beside a flowing river, watching the endless current below. Yet what he seemed to be watching was not water. It was time itself, sweeping people, hatred, glory, and regret inexorably downstream. 3 days had passed since Su Dao's teacher taught Wang Lin the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art and returned to closed-door cultivation. Zhou Li had entered seclusion as well, carrying hatred toward Su Dao that eerily mirrored the hatred Su Dao had once harbored toward him. The river flowed on. Gradually, the Third Soul's memories blurred within Wang Lin's mind, while the mysteries of the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art became increasingly distinct. The Dong Lin Sect was one of the 9 sects, 13 factions of this region. Its overall power could not compare with the Purple Sun Sect, yet mystery surrounded it. Its disciples rarely traveled outside, and outsiders knew little of what occurred within its borders. What everyone did know was that the Dong Lin Sect possessed 3 great arts, ancient inheritances whose fame had spread across the Immortal Astral Continent. Among them, the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art was especially profound. It took the clouds beneath heaven as its foundation and pursued an existence as elusive as the grand Tao itself. The cultivator merged with cloud, borrowed cloud to draw in the essence of heaven and earth, then transformed that accumulated creation into the mighty spells of the Cloud Dao. Its first true spell was the formation of one's own cloud beast, an existence capable of devouring clouds and exhaling fog. That spell was not openly separated from the introductory cultivation method. It was concealed within it. Only by cultivating the introductory art to its limit could one naturally comprehend the spell hidden inside. For an ordinary Dong Lin disciple, such an art demanded time, talent, and extraordinary comprehension. Wang Lin, however, was anything but ordinary. His present cultivation stood on a level the young Zhou Li and Su Dao of this memory could not approach. More importantly, he had personally comprehended 7 essences. Compared with deciphering essence itself, entering the threshold of this art was remarkably straightforward. Before Wang Lin, wisps of pale vapor began rising from the river. They drifted toward him like threads drawn by an invisible hand, circled his seated figure several times, and silently entered his body. Then darker mist emerged from both ends of the river. It gathered like rolling clouds, converging from 2 directions before flowing into Wang Lin without resistance. His figure flickered within the swelling cloud bank. Soon, vapor no longer rose only from the river. Even the surrounding grass began releasing strands of white mist, as though every trace of moisture between heaven and earth had answered his summons. Within moments, the world inside 1,000 feet vanished beneath whiteness. Wang Lin could no longer see even his own fingers. The clouds rolled and twisted around him, sometimes surging as though an enormous dragon were swimming unseen through their depths. Amid that boundless white, Wang Lin considered a crucial question: whether the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art could still be cultivated after he escaped the 5th flower. He had practiced it for only 2 days, yet he had already sensed its vastness. By absorbing clouds into the body, the art could gradually alter the body's very structure, until it acquired properties resembling cloud itself, seemingly separated from ordinary heaven and earth, elusive enough that others would find it difficult to see through him. That property alone made the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art far more than a simple offensive inheritance. Changing the nature of the cultivator's body meant concealment, survival, movement, and battle could all be affected. For someone like Wang Lin, whose enemies often possessed terrifying divine senses, such an art carried obvious value. Wang Lin remained beside the river. 1 month slipped away as though it had been nothing more than a breath. Throughout that month he barely moved, continuously absorbing the creation contained within this world. Strand after strand of white qi entered his body, bringing with it an unusual sensation of warmth and comfort. Yet every advance in his cultivation also disturbed the memory world. Distortions appeared more frequently. Parts of the surroundings showed signs of instability and collapse. Wang Lin understood the problem clearly. Minor distortions were useful clues, but they were not enough. Unless he caused a change so severe that the original memory was overturned on a fundamental level, these fractures alone would never expose which of the hidden doors was real. Cultivation and escape had therefore become the same strategy. Alter the memory until its disguise could no longer remain perfect. On that day, every cloud surrounding Wang Lin suddenly vanished. The last traces of mist poured into his body, and his eyes slowly opened. Those eyes no longer looked completely human. They seemed filled with drifting clouds, blurred and unfathomable, yet carrying a strange force of deterrence. Anyone who met his gaze would feel as though thick mist had descended around their consciousness, swallowing direction and threatening to make them lose themselves.
This art is not ordinary.
Wang Lin exhaled a mouthful of foul air. The breath transformed into gray fog, twisting like a small dragon as it shot more than 30 feet forward before slowly dispersing.
The clouds here are too sparse. They are not enough for me to continue cultivating this art. If I want to complete the introductory portion and force a greater change in the memory, I need to find far more clouds to absorb.
He rose to his feet, and a sharp light flashed through his cloud-filled eyes. At once an image unfolded within his mind, a map that he himself had gradually constructed. 1 month earlier, when Su Dao's teacher had transmitted the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art to Wang Lin, that deviation from the original memory had caused 8 hidden doors to briefly reveal themselves. Their presence disappeared almost instantly, leaving Wang Lin with only a rough impression of their locations. But throughout the following month, every distortion caused by cultivating the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art gave him another fragment. Piece by piece, the vague map became clearer, and the positions of the 8 doors slowly took shape. This was Wang Lin's true advantage. He was not merely cultivating inside the memory, he was using cultivation as a probe. Every contradiction he created forced the illusion to react, and every reaction revealed another weakness in the structure imprisoning him. Without hesitation, Wang Lin stepped into the air. His figure vanished from beside the river and reappeared high above the Dong Lin Sect. He did not stop. White clouds surged around his body, swallowing his silhouette, and he shot across the heavens as though he himself had transformed into a wandering cloud. Cloud Dao Art, endless flash. Far away, dark clouds blanketed the sky. Thunder rolled across the horizon, and rain swept down upon an enormous plain. Beneath those clouds stood a city inhabited by countless mortals of the Immortal Astral Continent. Wang Lin sat directly inside the storm clouds. His hands formed seals, then moved. Thunder instantly grew more violent. Lightning twisted endlessly through the dark mass, while the rain below intensified into a relentless downpour. But beneath the fury of the storm, something even stranger was occurring. The vast cloud bank began to churn as strand after strand of dark cloud was forcibly extracted and drawn into Wang Lin's body. 7 days passed. By then, the once massive storm clouds had become thin, a vast portion of them simply gone. Amid the remnants, a small cloud appeared to possess a spirit of its own and raced rapidly across the sky. Whenever that palm-sized cloud touched another cloud bank, the larger cloud would immediately convulse. Its vapor would be swallowed away, absorbed into the smaller mass, which would then speed onward in search of its next target. Another 7 days passed. In the blink of an eye, 2 full months had gone by since Wang Lin first learned the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. The roaming cloud suddenly contracted. Smaller and smaller it became, until its mist split apart and transformed into 7 cloud dragons. They spiraled outward, revealing Wang Lin seated at their center. He released a deep breath and opened his eyes. His pupils had vanished. In their place drifted clouds, turning his gaze into something eerie and breathtaking.
In these 2 months, I've cultivated the beginning portion of the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art to the 9th level. Only 1 step remains before completion. But that isn't my greatest harvest. During these 2 months, while repeatedly altering the memory, I found one of the 8 doors.
A mysterious light flashed within his eyes, distorted strangely by the clouds occupying them. Inside the map within his mind, 1 door had finally become clear. 2 months of cultivation had brought Wang Lin to the 9th level, but finding a door was incomparably more important. Strength could help him survive inside the 5th flower. The correct door could free him from it. And now, for the first time, escape was no longer merely an abstract possibility.
If my luck is good, perhaps the first door I test will be the real one.
Wang Lin stepped forward and plunged toward the earth below. An endless jungle stretched beneath him, broken by towering mountains. From deep within that sea of ancient trees came the occasional roar of beasts, heavy and distant, echoing between the peaks. Wang Lin entered the jungle in a flash and moved directly toward the location marked by his perception. Before long, he stopped in front of an utterly ordinary-looking tree. Ordinary in appearance, perhaps, but enormous in scale. The ancient tree towered more than 100 feet into the air, making a lone person beneath it appear insignificant. Its trunk was so thick that roughly 5 people would have been needed to surround it completely, and the years it had endured were impossible to estimate. Coiled around that ancient trunk was a giant python more than 1,000 feet long, its immense body wrapped around the tree like a living chain. Its tongue flickered in and out as cold eyes fixed upon Wang Lin. Wang Lin did not even spare the python his attention. He simply placed his right palm against the bark and slowly closed his eyes. The giant python, however, immediately sensed something terrifying. Its head drew back. Whatever predatory instinct it possessed warned it that the human below was not prey, and it had no intention of provoking him. It climbed several dozen feet higher along the tree before suddenly throwing its massive body outward. The python struck the forest floor, blasting dead leaves into the air, then slithered rapidly toward the depths of the jungle. At that exact moment, Wang Lin opened his eyes. The clue was movement. While the python remained wrapped around the tree, the two existed in the same location and could easily mislead his perception. But once it tried to flee, the source of the resonance moved with it. Wang Lin instantly understood. The ancient tree had never been the door. He shot forward like lightning. In an instant, Wang Lin caught the python by its tail. The 1,000-foot serpent convulsed violently, twisting its gigantic body in an attempt to tear itself free. At the same time, monstrous black light erupted from its scales. Within that darkness, the shadow of an enormous door slowly materialized across the python's back. The truth was finally exposed. The python itself was one of the 8 doors. And that revelation made the 8-door trial even more dangerous than it first appeared. The exits were not necessarily fixed objects waiting to be discovered. They could hide within living creatures, move through the world, and disguise themselves behind seemingly irrelevant details. Finding all 8 would require far more than raw cultivation. It would demand perception precise enough to separate illusion from truth. Wang Lin stared at the giant doorway now manifested upon the python's back. He had found the first of the 8. But only one question mattered now. Had fortune truly favored him enough for this first door to be the real path out of the 5th flower? Without retreat and without hesitation, Wang Lin stepped forward, straight toward the door. Half an hour later, Wang Lin emerged from the depths of the jungle. His expression remained calm, yet a quiet sigh escaped him. The python had indeed represented one of the 8 doors hidden within this strange memory world. But it was not the true entrance he sought.
5 flowers, 8 doors. If I investigate them one by one, sooner or later, I will find the correct one. But even if I completely cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, that alone will not create enough disturbance in the third soul's memories. Without a sufficiently great change, I still won't be able to force the 8 doors to reveal themselves.
The problem before Wang Lin was no longer cultivation alone. He was fighting something far more subtle, the stability of another person's memory. Strength could destroy mountains, but here, only altering crucial events could shake the structure of the illusion itself.
For now, I can only wait for the competition. Several months from now, the 7-colored celestial sovereign remembered that event extremely clearly. If I can overturn those memories enough during the competition, perhaps the resulting confusion will expose the real door.
Wang Lin hovered silently in the air as countless possibilities passed through his mind. Then his body blurred, dissolved into drifting cloud, and swept across the heavens toward the Dong Lin Sect. Time flowed without mercy. 3 months vanished as though swallowed by the wind. More precisely, 5 months had now passed since Wang Lin first began cultivating the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. And at last, the day recorded so deeply within the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories arrived, the Dong Lin Sect's great competition. The Dong Lin Sect stood among the mighty 9 sects' 13 factions. Once every 30 years, it gathered its lower-level disciples for an internal competition, searching among the countless young cultivators for those few whose talent deserved the sect's true investment. Yet glory was only one reward. The victors could also obtain qualification to cultivate within the Dong Lin pool. That opportunity alone was enough to turn every competition into a battlefield of ambition. The cultivation world had never truly escaped one ancient law. The strong seized opportunity, while the weak watched it disappear from their hands. The rules prohibited deliberate killing, but injuries were inevitable, and death was hardly unheard of. Unless someone descended into senseless slaughter, the sect would rarely interfere. The Dong Lin Sect contained 321 lineages. Each lineage would send 3 to 5 disciples. More than personal reputation was at stake, for whichever lineage achieved victory would receive considerable rewards as well. With more than 1,000 participants, the competition could not possibly end quickly. Yet for the vast Dong Lin Sect, this was one of the rare occasions when its countless scattered lineages truly gathered together. Many disciples who had cultivated beneath the same sect banner for years had never even met one another. On that day, Su Dao's teacher finally emerged from closed-door cultivation. He summoned his disciples and selected 3 to represent the lineage. Wang Lin, wearing Su Dao's identity, was naturally among them. Zhou Li was chosen as well. The third was a woman named Qin Mei, whose elegant appearance was matched by a usually reserved expression. Within the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories, Qin Mei occupied a particularly deep place. Su Dao had once admired her greatly. Yet after this competition, she would eventually become Zhou Li's Dao companion, extinguishing whatever hopes Su Dao had carried. Anyone who saw the timid Su Dao of this era would struggle to believe that he could one day become the decisive, calculating 7-colored celestial sovereign. Wang Lin, however, understood that transformation better than most. 2,000 years earlier, he himself had been someone completely different from the man he had become. Environment could reshape a person. Loss could harden them. Experience could carve away hesitation, until even an ordinary heart became unrecognizable. Such transformation was itself a form of fortune. But whether that fortune became blessing or calamity depended on the road one walked afterward. As Wang Lin contemplated this, a clear and pleasant voice reached him.
Junior Brother Su, I still haven't congratulated you for earning the qualification to cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. These past months, I couldn't even find your shadow. Only today have I finally seen you again.
Qinmei looked toward him with a light smile. Her manner was gentle, and the breeze carried the faint scent of her presence past Wang Lin. Wang Lin merely smiled faintly in return. His eyes remained tranquil. He offered no answer. Yet that simple smile caused Qinmei to pause. The Su Dao she remembered had always been painfully shy. Whenever she spoke to him, embarrassment would seize him, leaving him unsure what to say or where to look. Today was different. Behind that familiar face lay an inexplicable calm, as if years of storms had somehow settled within those eyes. Su Dao had always been handsome, but Wang Lin's composure gave that appearance an entirely different presence. Qinmei could not know the reason. The body before her belonged to the Su Dao she remembered, but the temperament behind its gaze belonged to Wang Lin, a cultivator who had crossed life and death too many times to be disturbed by such a simple encounter. Not far away, Zhou Li witnessed everything. Darkness gathered within his eyes. His appearance had changed little during the last 5 months, but the bloodshot traces and exhaustion hidden there betrayed the turmoil consuming him. Before Qinmei could continue, their teacher raised a hand. A cloud descended and wrapped around the 3 disciples. In an instant, it carried them through the sky toward the main sect of Dong Lin. The competition for the lower-level disciples would take place at the main sect's central square. Under normal circumstances, disciples from the 321 lineages were forbidden to enter this region unless specifically summoned. Only during the great competition were those restrictions relaxed. For many disciples, this single visit might be the first and last time in their entire lives that they stepped into the heart of the Dong Lin Sect. The square itself did not appear impossibly vast, though it could comfortably contain more than 1,000 cultivators. As a simple arena, however, it would clearly have been insufficient. But a power capable of standing among the 9 sects' 13 factions naturally possessed methods far beyond ordinary imagination. Generation after generation, Dong Lin Sect elders had layered restrictions upon this square. Whenever the competition began, a portion of those restrictions would awaken, tearing open a passage into a spatial domain created by the sect itself, the Dong Lin Rift. That rift would become the battlefield for the first trial. One streak of light after another crossed the heavens above the square. Every beam carried the teacher of a lineage, and the disciples selected beneath that lineage's banner. Because this competition concerned the sect's own younger generation, and might reveal the geniuses who would shape Dong Lin's future, outsiders were never invited. This was an entirely internal affair. The sect master, elders, and numerous deacons, however, would all attend. Their purpose was simple. Watch carefully, discover worthy seedlings, and decide whose future deserved resources. For the young disciples below, this was a competition. For the powerful cultivators above, it was an examination of investment. A single performance could change a disciple's standing, resources, teacher, and perhaps even destiny. When Wang Lin arrived, most of the competitors were already present. More than 1,000 young cultivators gathered in one place, yet surprisingly, chaos did not follow. The square remained orderly, and voices were scarce. As more people arrived, an invisible pressure seemed to settle across the crowd. Hearts beat faster, breathing grew heavier. Even those who normally spoke boldly unconsciously lowered their voices. Another half-hour passed. At last, representatives from all 321 lineages had gathered. The disciples waited in tense silence. Wang Lin alone remained utterly composed. Beside him, Qinmei's earlier smile had disappeared, replaced by restrained nervousness. Zhou Li hid his anxiety somewhat better, but even he could not conceal it completely. Mei glanced at Wang Lin and was startled by his tranquility. Strangely, simply standing beside someone so calm gradually steadied her own breathing. Then a mighty voice rolled across the square like celestial thunder.
Generation after generation, talented cultivators have risen from my Dong Lin Sect, allowing us to stand among the 9 sects' 13 factions. That position was purchased with the blood of your predecessors and passed into your hands. Today is the great competition of your generation. I wish to see the future of the Dong Lin Sect. I wish to see the unyielding spirit and decisiveness that a cultivator must possess. The first trial is the Dong Lin Rift. You will remain inside for 3 days. Your task is to seize the tokens carried by the other participants. When the time ends, the 30 disciples who possess the greatest number of tokens will advance.
Golden radiance suddenly erupted above the square. Nearly 100 figures appeared within the light, each radiating the pressure of a powerful Dong Lin Sect cultivator. They sat suspended in the heavens, their gazes descending upon the 1,000 disciples below. Then dozens of those gazes converged upon Wang Lin. He remembered this moment perfectly from the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories. The speech had been identical. The number of participants was identical. Even the figures seated within the golden light were the same. But one crucial detail had changed. In the original memory, most of those powerful gazes had fallen upon Zhou Li. Su Dao had received only scattered attention. Even then, the pressure of those experts had made his heart tremble. He lowered his head, unable to endure their scrutiny, and his performance had been painfully weak. Zhou Li, by contrast, had trembled but refused to retreat. He raised his chest beneath those gazes. With his talent and his qualification to cultivate the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, that moment should have marked the beginning of his rise. But that history no longer existed. A few gazes swept across Zhou Li now, but they barely lingered. One after another, the attention of the elders moved away from him and settled upon Wang Lin instead. Wang Lin did not straighten his posture. He did not lower his head. He did not attempt to impress anyone. He simply stood there, calm and unchanged, as though the scrutiny of dozens of powerful cultivators were nothing more than passing wind. And in truth, those gazes meant almost nothing to him. The elders were judging Su Dao, but the soul behind Su Dao's face had survived struggles far beyond what these young disciples could imagine. This disparity in experience was precisely why Wang Lin could overturn the memory without forcing his actions. Simply behaving as himself was already enough to change history. Zhou Li slowly clenched his fist and lowered his head. Jealousy and resentment churned violently within his eyes. For 5 months, one question had tormented him without answer. How had the cowardly Su Dao changed so completely? From Zhou Li's perspective, everything that should have belonged to him, attention, opportunity, recognition, was being taken away piece by piece by the very person he had once regarded as beneath him. This was more dangerous than simple envy. Zhou Li was not merely losing status. He was watching the future he believed was predetermined for him being rewritten before his eyes. And men who believe destiny has been stolen from them rarely remain calm forever. The mighty voice descended once more.
Enter.
5-colored radiance exploded above the square. A gigantic vortex formed in the heavens. It rotated with a deafening rumble, and within its depths appeared the shadow of an entirely foreign world. The instant the vortex stabilized, light enveloped every participating disciple. More than 1,000 cultivators became more than 1,000 streaks of brilliance, rising together toward the portal. One after another, they vanished into the Dong Lin Rift. The square immediately fell quiet. Only the teachers of the participating disciples remained below. They respectfully clasped their hands toward the golden figures in the sky before sitting down to observe. Once everyone had entered, the vortex gradually ceased rotating, its surface flattened, transforming into an enormous mirror that displayed the world within the rift. Any powerful cultivator who sent divine sense into that mirror could observe the competitors clearly. This was why the trial mattered so greatly to the sect. The tokens measured victory, but the watching elders could see much more than numbers. They could judge courage, decisiveness, adaptability, restraint, ruthlessness, and judgment, the qualities that separated a talented disciple from someone capable of surviving the cultivation world. Inside the Dong Lin rift stretched an endless dark land. The heavens were dim, buried beneath layers of dust and haze. Everything had been constructed to imitate a region of the Immortal Astral Continent. When Wang Lin materialized, he found himself standing upon a plain drowned beneath grass as tall as a person. He swept his gaze across the surroundings. It was exactly the same place recorded in the seven-colored celestial sovereign's memory. In that original past, Su Dao had failed during the very first trial. His token had been taken, and his path through the competition ended before it had truly begun. He could only stand aside afterward and watch Zhou Li, along with several other members of their lineage, rise beneath the attention of the sect. Their brilliance made Su Dao seem like nothing more than a grain of sand beneath a blazing sun. Worse still, it was here that Su Dao had suffered Zhou Li's cruel abuse. Zhou Li had not killed him, but the humiliation carved itself deeply into Su Dao's heart. He never forgot it. This seemingly ordinary trial was therefore far more than a youthful defeat. In the seven-colored celestial sovereign's life, it was one of the wounds that pushed Su Dao toward change. Humiliation, jealousy, lost affection, and powerlessness were converging here. And Wang Lin had deliberately stepped into the center of that turning point. And this time, the man standing beneath the dim heavens was no longer the helpless Su Dao of the original memory. If Wang Lin overturned what happened here, the disturbance might spread far deeper than anything he had accomplished during the previous 5 months. Perhaps deep enough to make the hidden true door tremble. Wang Lin slowly raised his head and looked into the dark, dust-covered sky. His gaze was tranquil, but beneath that tranquility lay an intention powerful enough to rewrite everything this memory believed should happen.
I have arrived, and everything will change.
Across the vast plain, Wang Lin walked beneath a dim and heavy sky. Wherever his feet passed, the grass quietly bent aside, opening a narrow path before him, as though even this false world instinctively yielded to his presence. His pace remained unhurried. 3 days was more than enough time for what he intended to accomplish. Yet his true concern was not the trial itself. Wang Lin was still considering one question. How could he stimulate the third soul even further and throw its memories into deeper chaos? He had already understood the weakness of this world. It was not governed by reality, but by memory. If he changed the remembered outcome strongly enough, the entire illusion would be forced to distort around him.
Then I should be able to do this.
Wang Lin took another step and raised his eyes toward the dark heavens. At that moment, a streak of light tore across the sky. It had nearly passed him when it abruptly stopped. Sword light flashed, sharp and merciless, and the streak suddenly reversed direction, charging straight toward Wang Lin. A young man, dressed in blue, emerged from the light. Killing intent covered his face, while the thick scent of blood clung to his body. Without hesitation, he drove his sword forward, the blade transforming into a brilliant arc aimed directly at Wang Lin's head. Wang Lin did not dodge. He merely lifted his right hand and extended one finger toward the incoming sword light. The sword radiance suddenly blazed brighter, then shattered. Fragments of the broken sword scattered through the air, revealing the young man behind it, his expression frozen in terror. He trembled once. In the next instant, his body exploded beneath the overwhelming force and vanished before Wang Lin's finger. Only 3 jade tokens remained, wrapped in gentle light as they floated silently in the air.
Fine. I'll simply take first place in this trial.
With a sweep of his sleeve, Wang Lin collected the 3 tokens. His figure then vanished from the plane. When he appeared again, he was already beside another streak of light flying through the sky. The cultivator inside had been cautiously scanning his surroundings, but Wang Lin's arrival was far too sudden. One casual strike sent the young man crashing from the air. Wang Lin did not kill him. He raised his palm, drew out the young man's token, and disappeared again. This distinction mattered. Wang Lin was not slaughtering merely because he possessed overwhelming strength. Those without a specific connection to Seven Colored's resentment were only pieces on the board. Taking their tokens was enough to alter the remembered trial. From that moment onward, the first trial became a hunting ground. Wang Lin moved through it like a wolf entering a flock of sheep. Wherever he appeared, no disciple could stop him. Every cultivator he encountered lost their jade token. His name spread with astonishing speed. Soon, disciples began trembling the instant they saw him. Some no longer dared to resist at all. They simply handed over their tokens and prayed he would move on. Wang Lin attacked almost lazily. He understood what others here could not. This entire scene existed inside Seven Colored's memory. Anything unreasonable could gradually become reasonable once that memory began to distort. Even the people outside the Dong Lin Rift were not truly independent beings. Their expressions, thoughts, shock, admiration, and fear were all reconstructed from Seven Colored's recollections. They behaved as Seven Colored remembered, or imagined they should behave. That meant Wang Lin was not merely defeating cultivators. He was attacking the logic holding an entire remembered world together.
Who is this person? Exclamation. In less than 1 day, he has already obtained more than 300 tokens. His attacks are decisive, yet his cultivation doesn't seem overwhelmingly higher. Every strike carries cloud energy. It's extraordinary. No one may be able to rival him in this competition. Who would have thought this generation contained someone like him?
Among the golden figures watching the vortex, everyone who witnessed Wang Lin's performance was shaken. The teachers standing on the square stared at the scene with disbelief in their eyes. Su Dao's teacher was different. Pride filled his face. The more dazzling Su Dao appeared, the greater the reward the teacher himself would eventually receive. Inside the first trial, Wang Lin could clearly sense the consequences of his interference. With every token he seized, distortions rippled through the surrounding world. When he defeated the geniuses preserved within Su Dao's memory, those distortions became even stronger. These changes were unmistakable signs that the Third Soul's memories were being rewritten. Yet Wang Lin's gaze remained cold.
The stimulation still isn't strong enough.
He shook his head. Then his divine sense erupted outward, sweeping across the entire trial ground in a single, vast wave. In an instant, every cultivator within this world appeared within Wang Lin's perception. He was searching for specific people. The geniuses who had once made Su Dao deeply jealous. In the original memory, these individuals had displayed brilliant talent, achieved dazzling results, and continued obtaining high rankings in the later trials. One of them was Kun Peng. He specialized in speed, moving so quickly that after images remained wherever he passed. In Seven Colored's memory, Kun Peng had ranked 3rd in this very first trial. Wang Lin's eyes remained calm. He stepped into the void, crossed an enormous distance in a single stride, and appeared in another region of the trial. There he finally found Kun Peng. 3 cultivators were nearby. The instant Wang Lin appeared, all 3 cried out in alarm and fled. Kun Peng, however, wore a cold smile and was about to pursue them when his instincts suddenly screamed. He spun around. 100 feet behind him, Wang Lin floated silently in the air. Only Wang Lin could see the distortion surrounding them. As he approached Kun Peng, Those ripples suddenly intensified, twisting the world as if the third soul itself had become agitated by the encounter.
Give me your token.
Wang Lin genuinely had little desire to bully a cultivator so insignificant compared with his true cultivation. But Kunpeng's place inside Seven Colored's memory made him useful. Kunpeng's pupils contracted. He retreated without the slightest hesitation. His speed was astonishing within the standards of this trial, carrying him far away in moments. But to Wang Lin, that speed was painfully slow. He sighed and casually waved his right hand. Kunpeng immediately let out a miserable cry. More than a dozen jade tokens flew from his possession and scattered through the air. The moment those tokens appeared, the distortion surged violently. The hidden aura belonging to the 8 doors also became denser, pressing against Wang Lin's senses from beyond the illusion. Yet the 8 doors still refused to fully reveal themselves.
Still not enough then. I'll help you kill Zhu La.
Coldness flashed through Wang Lin's eyes. His divine sense immediately locked onto Zhou Li. At that moment, Zhou Li was hiding cautiously inside a mountain. His condition was miserable, and only 8 jade tokens remained with him.
Damn Su Dao exclamation if it weren't for him. The Cloud Dao Heavenly Art would have belonged to me. I wouldn't have fallen into such a miserable state in this first trial exclamation. Everything is because of Su Dao exclamation. I'll kill him.
Hatred twisted Zhou Li's expression. His resentment toward Su Dao had already sunk deep into his heart.
He entered the sect far later than I did exclamation. What right does he have to learn the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art we does teacher value him so much?
He clenched his teeth and forced himself to continue healing. Then, without warning, the mountain around him trembled. Zhou Li froze. A heartbeat later, a thunderous rumble shook the entire mountain. His face changed drastically, and he shot outward with all his strength. The instant he escaped, the mountain collapsed behind him. Huge rocks crashed downward like a stone tide. Zhou Li twisted through the falling debris, but one massive fragment still struck him. Blood burst from his mouth as he was hurled 1,000 feet away. And behind him, Wang Lin appeared.
Zhu Lai.
Those 2 words struck Zhou Li like heavenly thunder. Terror exploded through his mind. He immediately tried to flee. He never had the chance. Wang Lin's right palm descended onto Zhou Li's forehead. In that instant, the thunder roaring inside Zhou Li's mind became eternal silence. The moment Zhou Li died, the world reacted. Distortions erupted around Wang Lin with unprecedented violence. Faint rumbling echoed through heaven and earth, and the world created by the 5th flower seemed to reach the very edge of collapse. At the same time, the aura of the 8 doors became dramatically clearer. In a single moment, Wang Lin precisely sensed the locations of 3 of them. This confirmed Wang Lin's deduction. The greater the contradiction between reality and Seven Colored's remembered history, the more violently the third soul reacted. Killing Zhou Li was especially effective because it overturned a relationship filled with jealousy, hatred, and future conflict. Wang Lin was now using Seven Colored's own emotional attachments as a weapon against the memory itself. A mysterious light appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. Without wasting another breath, he moved again. His divine sense spread across the trial as he searched for the remaining Dong Lin Sect disciples. Fear swept through them. One after another, Wang Lin appeared before them and took their jade tokens. With every token he obtained, the distortions intensified. The third soul trembled more fiercely, because everything Wang Lin was doing directly contradicted the memories it was trying to preserve. The clash between memory and the new reality was becoming so severe that the illusion itself seemed ready to tear apart. And through those widening cracks, Wang Lin could feel the 8 doors with increasing clarity. Then the final piece of Wang Lin's plan became clear.
The Dong Lin Sect competition will no longer have a second or third trial. If I take every jade token during the first trial, there will be no reason for any later trial to exist. I will be the only winner. that will completely overturn the third soul's memories.
His eyes shone, he accelerated. One disciple after another lost their jade tokens as Wang Lin swept through the trial. Those who surrendered were left unharmed. Those who resisted were struck aside without ceremony. Wang Lin bore them no hatred. Even if they were only figures reconstructed from Seven Colored's memory, he still had no reason to kill indiscriminately. Only those whom Seven Colored had deeply envied, or those connected to vicious encounters later in his life, were marked for death. Each time one of those figures died, the distortion trailing behind Wang Lin expanded violently. It was almost as though the third soul had become excited by the chaos. And that was perhaps the most dangerous sign of all. The memory was no longer merely resisting Wang Lin, it was reacting to him. The closer he came to destroying the original history, the more violently the third soul exposed itself. For Wang Lin, that was exactly what he wanted. A fierce wind swept across the Dong Lin Sect's main square outside the trial. Every observer had risen to their feet. Their surroundings had begun to warp. Some figures even flickered as though they might collapse at any moment. Yet none of them noticed. Every gaze remained fixed on the vortex in the sky, a vortex that had now stopped rotating. Through it, they watched Wang Lin seize almost every jade token by himself. They witnessed a scene that had never existed in the Dong Lin Sect's remembered history. Shock surged across the square like a tidal wave. But even that shock was false. Their expressions, their thoughts, their disbelief. Every reaction had been created by Seven Colored's memory. There is a cruel irony here. The illusion was trying to invent believable reactions to an event that should never have happened. The more convincingly it adapted, the more it admitted that its original history had already been broken. At last, within the first trial, Wang Lin obtained the final jade token. The distortion became terrifying. The auras of all 8 doors were now astonishingly clear. Wang Lin could feel them pressing against the world from beyond the illusion. Yet one final layer remained, like thin fog concealing their true forms. Wang Lin looked up at the dim sky. Then he raised both hands. His fingers seized the heavens themselves. With raw force, Wang Lin tore outward. The sky split open. A gigantic rift appeared across the heavens, and beyond that rift lay the main square of the Dong Lin Sect. Before countless stunned gazes, Wang Lin stepped out of the trial world and entered the square. He did not descend. He remained suspended high above the Dong Lin Sect, overlooking everything below.
I, Su Dao, am ranked first in this competition.
The declaration fell like a heavenly decree. Then heaven and earth collapsed. Every figure on the square vanished. Mountains, sky, disciples, teachers, golden figures. Everything inside that remembered world shattered apart, as if an invisible hand had crushed the entire illusion. The 5th flower trembled violently. Cracks spread across it inch by inch, until the flower itself began to crumble. At the same moment, the third soul's memories were finally subverted beyond recovery. The auras of the 8 doors erupted without concealment, rising into the heavens like 8 enormous pillars of smoke. Wang Lin had succeeded not by overpowering the illusion from outside, but by destroying its history from within. He turned a remembered competition into an impossible victory, erased the need for its later trials, and forced the third soul to expose the hidden doors. This was not merely strength, it was an assault on causality itself. Yet amid the destruction, one place remained untouched. The back mountain of the Dong Lin Sect did not collapse. There, beyond the ruin of memory and illusion, the Dong Lin Pool still remained. Dong Lin Pool, a place the 7-colored celestial sovereign had yearned for, yet never once entered. Even after his ancestor chose him to be personally nurtured, that sacred qualification remained beyond his reach. Later, when he finally earned the right to enter, an unforeseen accident struck. He was expelled from the Dong Lin Sect before he could take that final step. The regret followed him for the rest of his life, buried so deeply that even after the surrounding world began to collapse, the Dong Lin pool alone refused to vanish. That single surviving pool revealed the deepest scar within the third soul. Mountains could crumble, memories could shatter, and an entire false world could perish. Yet this one unfulfilled wish remained untouched. To Wang Lin, that regret was no longer merely emotion. It was the weakness he could use to tear open the path ahead. As the memory world fractured, the auras of 8 doors emerged clearly from the collapsing heavens and earth. At the same time, the restriction that had prevented anyone except Wang Lin from entering began to loosen. Wang Lin had activated the 5th flower using the 3rd soul. Under normal circumstances, once he entered this place, even Old Ghost Zhan could not follow. But now the 3rd soul's memories were in chaos. The boundary was crumbling, and Old Ghost Zhan's aura circled outside like a starving beast, striking again and again in an attempt to break through. The 8 doors had appeared, but the true one remained hidden among them. Searching each door individually would consume precious time. Wang Lin had never summoned these entrances through the proper sequence in the first place. He had taken a violent shortcut, confusing the 3rd soul's memories until all 8 were forcibly exposed. And that shortcut carried a ruthless price. The entire world was dying. If Wang Lin failed to identify the true door before the memory collapsed completely, all 8 entrances would disappear once more. Then everything he had risked to create this opening would have been wasted. Worse still, Old Ghost Zhan might break in before Wang Lin found another chance. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He had forced this opportunity into existence with his own hands. He would never allow it to vanish without extracting every last advantage.
Is this still not enough to stir you, Su Dao? You left the Dong Lin Sect without ever fulfilling your wish. I can help you enter the Dong Lin pool. Very well. I, Wang Lin, will fulfill that regret for you. But in return, you will show me where the true door is.
There was no time left for hesitation. Old Ghost Zhan could shatter the already fragile barrier at any moment. Wang Lin surged forward and crossed the distance to the Dong Lin pool in an instant. The pool resembled the one he had seen within the 2nd flower, except this one was not sealed beneath ice. Its water was limpid and tranquil, while a faint fragrance drifted above its surface, eerily untouched by the destruction swallowing everything around it. Wang Lin entered the pool and immediately sat down. The instant his body touched the water, all 7 essences within him stirred at once. The reaction was violent beyond expectation. An unimaginable essence energy hidden inside the Dong Lin pool poured into his body, spreading through his meridians and fusing directly with his 7 essences. This was no ordinary increase in spiritual power. The Dong Lin pool was nourishing the very foundations of Wang Lin's Dao. Each essence represented a law he had comprehended through cultivation, battle, loss, and enlightenment. Now those laws were being pushed toward a higher form of existence. His 7 essences swelled several times over. After cycling through his body, they erupted outward. First came the fire essence from his left eye. It transformed into a blazing sea, plunged into the Dong Lin pool, and devoured the power within. From the flames, a figure slowly rose. It possessed Wang Lin's face, Wang Lin's form, yet every inch of it was forged from living fire. Fiery robes fluttered around its body as an overwhelming aura surged outward. His fire essence had transformed completely. It was no longer merely an essence. It had formed an essence true body. Then thunder exploded through the pool. Countless arcs twisted across the remaining water. A thunder dragon shot upward amid a deafening roar, while at the same moment, the thunder essence within Wang Lin's right eye rushed out and merged with it. The dragon twisted in midair and assumed human form. Another Wang Lin appeared, surrounded by raging thunder, like a celestial born from heavenly punishment itself. Next came three ethereal essences: life and death, karma, and true and false. They emerged without sound, yet the Dong Lin pool reacted even more fiercely. More than half of its water vanished as those three powers condensed into form. The life and death true body appeared first. Dressed in gray, long hair drifting behind it, the figure raised both arms. Its left hand seemed to hold life itself, while its right governed death. Standing there, it resembled a celestial sovereign presiding over the boundary between existence and oblivion. Beside it, the karma true body condensed. One open palm represented karmic cause. One closed palm represented karmic effect. Endless wisdom seemed to dwell within its gaze, as though every change in the mortal world was merely another thread within an immeasurable web. The true and false body appeared next. Its eyes remained half closed, its figure shifting between reality and illusion beneath a veil of mist. Yet the pressure radiating from it was enough to make the heart tremble. 5 essences had already acquired true bodies. For most cultivators, witnessing even one such transformation would have been a revelation capable of overturning their understanding of cultivation. Yet, for Wang Lin, the Dong Lin pool had only begun to reveal its true value. His killing essence emerged next. Vast quantities of pool water disappeared beneath its thirst until less than 30% remained. Scarlet killing intent gathered, compressed, and finally became a crimson true body. The instant that body opened its eyes, killing intent flooded the world. It was as if all slaughter beneath heaven had been condensed into a single human form, a presence capable of making even the collapsing memory world seem momentarily insignificant. Then came the restriction essence, born from the bloodlines hidden within Wang Lin's eyes. Those blood-colored lines flew out and hovered before him, resembling a pair of mysterious eyes suspended in the void. The pool drained again. Less than 20% remained. The restriction essence completed its transformation and condensed into Wang Lin's 7th essence true body. Shock seized Wang Lin so completely that, for a heartbeat, he forgot the threat of Old Ghost Zhan outside. He even forgot that the true entrance remained hidden among the 8 doors. He had never imagined that the Dong Lin pool possessed the power to evolve essences into true bodies. In all his years of cultivation, through everything he had seen and every ancient secret he had encountered, he had never heard of such a phenomenon. But Wang Lin understood the cruel truth almost immediately. None of this was truly his. This Dong Lin pool existed only inside the third soul's memory. The power he felt, the 7 true bodies surrounding him, even the astonishing rise in cultivation, all of it belonged to an illusion that would disappear when the memory world collapsed. Yet illusion did not mean meaninglessness. The experience had shown him something priceless. The real Dong Lin pool might truly possess such heaven-defying power.
If I can reach the Immortal Astral Continent, I must go to the Dong Lin pool.
The thought thundered repeatedly through his heart. Even though his current power was false, the path it revealed was real. His cultivation inside this illusion had already multiplied several times over. And then came the greater surprise. Wang Lin did not possess only 7 essences. There was an 8th, the water essence he had obtained from the formation on Planet 5 Elements. Until now, it had reached only small completion, and remained far from the level needed to advance his cultivation. The remaining water of the Dong Lin pool suddenly surged through Wang Lin's pores. Every drop entered his body and fused with that 8th essence. His heart pounded. The water essence was growing at a terrifying speed. Small completion was surpassed. Its power continued climbing until the very last drop of the Dong Lin pool vanished. At that instant, the water essence reached completion. A final true body formed. It wore robes like flowing waves, while its entire figure shone with the translucent clarity of water. 8 essence true bodies now surrounded Wang Lin. At the same moment, Wang Lin's late-stage spirit void cultivation surged upward. In a single breath, he reached the peak of the spirit void stage, standing only one step away from arcane void. The path had become terrifyingly clear. If Wang Lin could form a ninth essence, he could step into arcane void. 9 essences would unite as one, pushing his comprehension to the peak of essence cultivation. The Dong Lin pool had not simply shown him more power, it had shown him the shape of his next great breakthrough. With every drop of water exhausted, cracks spread across the empty Dong Lin pool. The last surviving landmark of this ruined memory world shattered into countless fragments and dissolved into the void. Wang Lin opened his eyes. In that same instant, the entire world created from Seven Colored's memory collapsed. The barrier finally broke. Old Ghost Zhan's aura burst into the dying realm and shot straight toward Wang Lin. But the destruction also exposed what Wang Lin had been searching for. Among the 8 doors, one aura suddenly erupted with overwhelming force, suppressing the other 7 in an instant. The true door had revealed itself. Beyond it lay the Immortal Astral Continent. Wang Lin's gaze snapped upward. Behind him, Old Ghost Zhan approached with the fury of a madman. Beneath him, the last fragments of Seven Colored's world were falling into nothingness. Wang Lin leaped into the air. Explosive popping sounds rang from his body. The terrifying cultivation he possessed here was only temporary, but the sensation of that power had already carved open a brilliant road in his mind. For a cultivator like Wang Lin, that glimpse was almost as valuable as genuine advancement. He now knew that 8 essence true bodies were possible. He knew what power awaited beyond his current limits. Most importantly, he had experienced that realm with his own senses. Once a path had been seen, it could be pursued. He took a single step. The collapsing world vanished beneath his feet. The aura of the true door surged directly ahead. Old Ghost Zhan pursued desperately, but he could no longer close the distance. Wang Lin had comprehended the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art, and within this memory world he now possessed 8 essence true bodies. With one step, space itself seemed to yield before him. He appeared directly before the true door. A mountain had once stood there, but that mountain was long gone. In its place towered an enormous ancient gate. Its vastness dwarfed Wang Lin until he seemed no larger than an ant before it, while an aura older than countless generations rolled from its surface. This was no mere doorway between 2 locations. For Wang Lin, it was the boundary between the sealed cave world that had defined his existence and the immense true world beyond it. Everything he had cultivated, suffered, lost, and defied had brought him to this threshold. Wang Lin did not hesitate. He raised his right hand. Ancient Dao power surged through him. His cultivation roared in response. Every strand of strength he could command gathered into that single palm before he slammed it against the colossal gate.
Door to the cave, open!
Behind him, all 8 essence true bodies appeared simultaneously. Fire, thunder, life, and death, karma, true and false. Slaughter, restriction, water. 8 figures raised their hands with Wang Lin and pressed against the ancient door as one. The gate trembled. Then came a thunderous roar that seemed capable of shaking the entire cave world. A narrow gap appeared between the 2 halves of the door. The gate began to open. And beyond that widening gap was the Immortal Astral Continent, the vast, genuine world outside the sealed cave. Wang Lin became the first person from inside the cave to reach this threshold after the door had been sealed. The emotion of that moment was almost impossible to describe. Perhaps Daoist scattered spirit had once felt something similar when he escaped the 7 million worlds and first stepped into the ancient star system. A man leaving one heaven behind, only to discover that an even greater heaven had always existed beyond it. For Wang Lin, this was more than discovery. It was proof. The cave was not the end of the road. The countless mysteries surrounding his world belonged to something vastly greater, and for the first time, that greater world stood directly before him. The instant the door opened, an immense surge of pure Immortal Astral Continent aura rushed through the gap and poured into the collapsing world.